everyone to Weekend Escapades. Today we are in Hurricane, Utah, and we're going to go into the Heritage Museum here and the Heritage Park and Museum honoring the pioneers. As you can see right here, it says on the sign, and that is where we're going to head into, right over here.
And it's pronounced Hurricane. How did Hurricane get its name? Well, legend has it that one windy day in the 1860s, Erastus Snow had a whirlwind blow the top off of his buggy when he was driving. He reportedly said, "Well, that was a hurricane." And there is the name.
Now, the Temple Trail and the Honeymoon Trail are two very important pioneer trails that lie a little bit south of this location. And you can see here a lot of the wagons and things that they had, that they traveled on these trails here in the park that's just outside the museum. Obviously, it used to be a covered wagon. No cover now. And that is in a fairly good condition. You know, every time we see a wagon or, you know, a train car, you can see where the resemblance comes in with a train. Or again, these wagons. It's just amazing the construction that they put together on these. And also, like, look back here, the brake. You obviously see the brake is just a big chunk of wood that used to stop that wheel to slow those wagons down. If I'm not mistaken, they used to use their feet or a hand brake right over there probably to pull the brakes on this and put a little bit of pressure on those back wheels to hold the wagon in place or to be able to slow it down. As you can see it here, this mechanical piece then went to the back where that brake's at with this lever here. And also, right here is where the hand lever was. And they used to be able to lock it in these notches to slow that down. And the team would be hitched up right up here to keep this wagon moving. But here's a perfect hand cart here. So you would load this up with your belongings and put yourself directly behind this bar and move yourself across the prairie, pulling this up and down trails. Pretty amazing when you think about it. We think only horses did the work, but a lot of pioneers didn't have the ability, so these hand carts were traded off and people would take turns pulling this down the trail.
And pulling wagons down the trail they did. In 1896, Hurricane was established, and it was to secure a trade route, is how it started, to secure an area. And this was done by a handful of families. But one thing for sure is they had hard work ahead of them, as they built one of the most amazing canals to get water into this area, and they did. The canal was so favored that people actually used to be able to float down it. That's how much water that they had coming into Hurricane. Because this was 8 feet wide, 4 feet deep, and the canal flowed past the town along the Hurricane Cliffs, and it provided water to most of the community, with 10 cisterns located along the way. The pioneers blasted a total of 12 tunnels and constructed 6 wooden flumes. Now, this Pioneer Museum is kind of famous for a few things that are inside.
I'll see if I can get, hopefully I can get this in the camera without the reflection of the lights, but this wedding cake was made in 1907, and this is a famous cake that is known for its listing on the internet as the must-see sites in America. This was once a 4-layer fruit cake baked by Mrs. Mariah Ballard of Grafton, Utah, which we filmed Grafton as a ghost town. So this cake was actually produced there. And the bride and groom pictured above were Emily, or Ella, Wood and Joe Sco. The cake originally had fresh pink blossoms and dew plant on it, along with pink candy flowers. And it doesn't quite look like that anymore. It's I can't believe that cake's that old. But there it is, and here is the couple right there, and that's their wedding cake from 1907. There's pictures of sheep on a sheep bridge that they had there to go across a valley. And this is known as one of the largest areas for sheep. And all those little dots and bumps you see are sheep. Thousands of sheep lived in this valley, and they sheared them. And I'm going to show you the shears that they used to shear these sheep. And when you see them, you're going to realize that, my goodness, these people must have had huge, strong hands. So here's some of the old spurs and some of the tools, but look at these sheep shear. That's what they used to clip and shear all those sheep. Now, that had to be absolutely miserable, especially with the heat that you have here. Of course, you know, this Hurricane is located, it's pretty much the desert by St. George. It's literally 106 today. I can't imagine shearing sheep in any kind of weather with those tools, let alone the heat. They'd probably shear them in a different time of the year, I would hope. This is fascinating. That's a hand-carved chain, and these are actually carved inside this box, the wood balls.
Now, there's a lot of great old things to see in this museum. But one of the things is that they have old food. That old cake from 1907. And now, take a look at this. The oldest bacon I've ever seen anywhere under glass.
This is cured bacon from 1945. And this was, looks like cured by Grace Wright Jepson. That would not be good to eat, but it is here in the museum. Now I'm standing in front of the old Hurricane bell, so kind of a little bit of a history. At the turn of the 20th century, the American Bell Foundry Company of Northville, Michigan produced bells for firehouses, churches, and farmhouses, and it produced this one by 1907. So this is a 30-inch bell, and it weighs 530 pounds, and they've refastened it here. It was at 4 different locations here in Hurricane, and the cost of this bell originally $35.75 plus freight, and they still ring this bell. You can still see the rope there, but they've got it locked up, so of course people can't just play with it, because that is an amazing bell. Hard to get a good photo of it the way it's been encased in there. I'm gonna back up and see if you can get a look at it, but I'm telling you, that's a $35.75 bill plus freight. That was worth the money because it's been here for a long time. Here's a better picture of that 530-pound bell. I hope you're as amazed by that as I am. I had no idea that a bell that size weighed 530 pounds. This is the old Bradshaw Hotel. Now this is also a museum that they have inside. And the Bradshaw Hotel is actually the heritage home and pioneer corner. Original home of Ira E. and Marion Hinton Bradshaw. Built in 1906 through 1908. It is placed on the National Registry. And this is supposed to be a very interesting old building here in Hurricane, and one of the most popular as well.
Now, one of the first things you see when you walk in the museum to the left is the physician's quarters. There's, of course, old wheelchair, old chiropractor tables. I thought those were amazing. And, of course, this is where they lived, and this is where they did all the work for early day medicine.
Old player piano. First phone in Hurricane was 1913, and this is a 1900s old telephone. So you had the wind-up handle there. You'd speak in that, and that one there would go against your ear. Old phonograph by Brunswick. You know, I've seen a lot, but this one's in really good condition. It looks like it would actually still play. That would be amazing if it did. These are some narrow stairs going up here. And I understand there's an amazing doll collection up here. Nice old place, but let me tell you, when you come up here and it's a little dark like this, it a little different. Kind of scary. Not a real big doll guy. And definitely not a real big clown guy, especially when it comes to dolls. Little bit creepy. Now outside the museum here, this used to be a bed and breakfast as well. So it was a lot of things, but for quite a few years, it was a bed and breakfast. And out back, they've got kind of a nice area here where they have a blacksmith shop, a little bit of an outdoor museum with all the wagons and some of the machinery that they used in the area. Those are some heavy gears. I don't really have an idea what that is. Very interesting. That's some heavy metal in there. This looks very old, but yet it has tires on it. Looks like it has some kind of a sifter up here. And maybe where you'd put whatever it is up here in this, and it would come down and sift, and then come through the bottom. If anybody knows what this is, please comment below and let me know. Here's a better view of that. I'm not into the farming equipment or maybe what this would be, but maybe one of you know. Let me know. Now this is the Shetler wagon. Now this freight wagon was bought by Harold Reeves in about 1930. It was the last new wagon sold by Sandberg Mercantile in Hurricane, Utah. So this was bought here and used here. It was a big freight wagon that was used here in Hurricane. And this is how they move freight. Now you just put it on a big diesel truck, move it around. Now this right here was an actual home. It was the Spencer and Helen Isom, I-S-O-M home. I hope I'm saying that correct. It was built in 1915. It's a typical construction of homes in Hurricane during that period of time. And they've brought this here and preserved it. That's over 100 years old, this home. Sorry for the noise in the background. A truck went by. This is right on the road, crossroads here in Hurricane. Now this one is an old Pioneer home as well. Early Pioneer and granary and home. So I guess this is a granary and home that's here in Hurricane. So these lived around the area, and they put them here in this backyard museum to the actual museum that's up front. You can see it's right up there is where the museum is. We come down this walkway and you see a lot of machinery they have here on property. We'll go look at those other buildings. But this old home is fascinating. You can see here it's got a little outtake, like maybe this was a root cellar or storage area, and the old door that went in there. I'm always fascinated by old buildings, but even more fascinated at the fact that they're able to move them and still keep them all original and make them look so nice. Good to see that they preserve these buildings. You can see the old shelves and things they had in the back, and there's another window. An old outhouse back here, and the Pioneer hay barn, manger and corral. So there's a hay barn there. You can see this was the manger and hay barn that they have. Oh look, we can walk in. Low ceiling. I better watch that. Fruit sprayer from back in the day. Don't know how old that is. It does have tires on it, and that's fairly old, is because it has a wood construction to it, almost like a barrel construction. There's an old beam from a grist mill laying there. Garden cultivators, and an old wagon that looks like they're going to restore right here. They're getting it ready to fix up, but that is fairly old. Different than the trunk on your car, but same purpose. This looks almost like a single, whatever you would call it, a buckboard or wagon. What do you call them, buckboards or wagons? I don't know what you would call a single like that. You see it's got like the leaf spring model here to help cushion the ride, but no wheels on it yet. That's going to do it for today here in Hurricane, Utah. We had a great time. We experienced a couple of the little museums, shared a little bit of the history and some of the old buildings that were here. But this all exists right around the park and on the corner here in Hurricane. So this is just on the way up to Pipe Springs or to the Grand Canyon, and I'm standing right in front of the old blacksmith shop that lives right here on property at this museum. We'll see you on our next adventure. Goodbye from Weekend Escapades.